Hey, what's up guys, OSG here with another video, and today we will be looking at 10 C64 sequels that never lived up to the original game. I'm sure we have all at some point played a game that we loved and then heard about the sequel was coming out and rushed out to buy it on the merit of the original game. Sometimes this paid off, but a lot of the time software houses shoveled out a load of crap quick to capitalise on the original game's success, and that's what this video is all about. Well, not all crap, but definitely not what we expected. I've ordered these on how I rate the sequel to the original game, and then done a sort in Excel, best to worst. So sit back, grab a drink and relax and watch 10 Commodore 64 sequels that never lived up to their predecessor. Kicking us off in 10th place we have Barbarian II, The Dungeon of Drax. 1 year after the great Barbarian Ultimate Warrior, Palace Software produced this game. Barbarian was massive at the time, and I don't know anyone who didn't have it, just for a picture of Maria Whittaker. Anyway, the new game was marketed much the same way, with the scantily clad page 3 stunner on the front. The game road to me and many others was a mile away from what we expected, and instead of a one-on-one gore fighter, we got an action-adventure game that for me I could never get into. Still not a bad game though by any means, but definitely not to the standard of the first game. Luckily though, we got another Maria poster to take our minds off that. Next up in 9th place we have the Vindicator. Many people won't realise that this is a sequel to the brilliant but brutally hard Green Beret, and if you did and went out and bought this, your game would have been let down by the lack of likeness to the original. For me, I never liked the Vindicator, it was just too hard, the mazes were ridiculous, and although Green Beret was hard as nails, it was actually fun while being hard. This game is just tough and not fun. It's a real shame as well, as the graphics are brilliant and the music from Jonathan Dunn is class. Next up in 8th place we have Arie II. This is a sequel to a great budget game from Zeppelin Games called, you've guessed it, Arie. The thing that we loved about Arie was its simplicity and how fair the game was. It was a Who Dares Wins meets Commando style game by the great Chris Butler, and the best thing about it was it was cheap. The second game, while looking very similar, lacks everything that was good about the original game, with terrible hit detection making it next to unplayable unless you want to constantly lose your shit when you're hit by something that didn't actually touch you. Yeah, it's budget, but after the first game we expected much better. Should have been Chris who made this one. Yeah Kung Fu 2 was in 7th position. So Yeah Kung Fu was a massive hit in the arcades, and it's a bit of a love it or hate it game. I personally love it, and it holds great memories for me. The C64 version was a very good arcade port, but then we got the sequel, which took away all the stuff we expected and gave us this lackluster pile of crap. From the off it's virtually unplayable, with the moves that we loved from the first game simply not registering, resulting in the game being no fun at all. If by any chance you do jump your way through to a one-on-one fight, it's so hard you will struggle to pass even one opponent. Don't get me wrong, with practice I bet you can get past, but games like this are meant to be enjoyable, ain't they? In 6th place we have Merks, which if you didn't know is the sequel to the great Commando. Released some 6 years after the arcade classic Commando, this game actually wowed big time in the arcades, but when it arrived on the C64 it was an absolute mess. Yeah, it's the arcade game, but way too blocky looking, and even us die-hard C64 fans have nothing to come back with if people say how bland and brown the colour palette is on this. All of those things could have been forgiven if the gameplay was on point, because come on, we had a great version of Commando that got the gameplay spot on. But no, that's the worst bit about this game. It's so jerky, it's unreal. Fifth place is taken by Operation Thunderball. Everyone who was around back in the late 80s will remember Operation Wolf. It was like nothing we had ever seen, with a real looking Uzi and pinpoint non-stop tough action. The C64 version was a great part too, although it was a bit hard to control with your joystick. Even so, I loved it. So when Operation Thunderball came along, I rushed out and bought it, only to be met with a complete bore-fest of a game. I mean, I didn't like the arcade as much as the original either, but this just doesn't work at all on the C64 for me. I ended up thinking, what's the point in switching it off, as it didn't feel as if I was actually doing anything at all, but still progressing in the game. Ghostbusters 2 was in 4th position. So this is where the margins between the original and the sequels get big. Ghostbusters was a game that was not only simple, but was so much fun, as you took control of the Ghostbusters company. It wasn't really faithful to the movie plot, but who cared? It still screamed Ghostbusters, and had the classic Ghostbusters music. When Ghostbusters 2 came out, I think everyone who bought it should have been given a refund. This was the classic churn out some crap that vaguely resembles parts of the movie, while the license is still hot. And loads of us fell for it and got a game that not only looks bad, but is next to unplayable. Thankfully, only 3 levels of this shit though. In 3rd place we have Blue Max 2001. So Blue Max, wow, what a game. An isometric shooter with altitude controls, bombs and gameplay that's right up there with the best on the C64. That game will have been amongst a lot of people's first ever games on the C64, released in 1983, and I think it's even better than the Atari 2600 game that it was ported from. Anyway, 1 year later we got Blue Max 2001. First of all, I have to admire the optimistic approach that by 2001 we will be flying around in spaceships. At least Back to the Future went forward to 2015. Anyway, this is so far removed from the original, with multi-directional scrolling and shooting that simply doesn't work and was not a joy to play like the original. 2nd place is taken by Thrust 2. Thrust was such a simple and well executed game with vector style graphics that just worked. The game was all about the gameplay, which was spot on, and just the right degree of hardness to have you playing for hours but never feeling cheated, because when you died because it was your fault. Fast forward 2 years, we got Thrust 2. This should have been one of the simplest games ever to make a sequel to. Just take everything that was good from the first game and give us different, more challenging maps. Well, Firebird completely ignored that plan and changed the whole game into this monstrosity, trying to make the graphics more flashy, which I hate, and lost the whole physics of the first game, which made it so enjoyable. Surely somebody who tested this said, okay, but it's just not Thrust. And now in 1st place we have Victory Road, which is a sequel to Atari Warriors. Oh yeah, so I've cheated a bit here, but let me explain. Atari Warriors US release from 1986 is one of the worst games on the C64, but we in Europe got a whole different version in 1988 and that game was great. And that's also where I cheated, as Victory Road was released in 1987. That being said, I did actually get Victory Road on the strength of how good our version of Atari Warriors was, and I was met with what can only be described as a total car crash of a game. So yeah, US viewers might be thinking, hold on, yes, Victory Road was shit, but nowhere near as shit as Atari Warriors, and I sympathise for that, but as far as we were concerned in Europe, we were well and truly ripped off. Okay, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you know of any C64 games where the sequels didn't live up to the original. Please remember to drop this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more great retro content. Oh, and if you would like to become a Patreon like these guys going up the screen right now, get on over to my Patreon channel where you can pledge for as little as $1. That will get you perks like your name in the end credits, video requests, giveaways and more in the future. Till next time, this is OSG, signing out.